Mac and Perry in the place. Da-na-na-na. Mac and Perry go live to create. Da-na-na-na. Mac and Perry invite you to stay.
Welcome to On Location here in Lethbridge. I'm Michael.
I'm Daniel, and this is
Annae.
Yeah, so thanks so much for meeting with us, Annae. I'm really excited to learn about your artistic practice. What sort of art do you do?
Well, that's a great question. I do all sorts of art. I started out in acrylic doing landscape, and then as I developed my artistic practice, I've gone into mixed media, oil painting, and I do anything from very representational to very abstract and whimsical in between.
Nice, yeah. I'm looking forward to discussing your art and then, of course, seeing it with the showcase. First we do a little icebreaker games.
Okay.
Just to have a little fun and warm up. So the first one is trivia, and we have some Lethbridge trivia for you.
Okay.
How are you at trivia?
Terrible. I'm really terrible at trivia, but word games, I'm great.
It'll be very simple. It's just about Lethbridge, multiple choice. What is the oldest business in Lethbridge? Is it A, Baylog Auction Services, B, the Penny Coffee House, C, Lethbridge Iron Works, or D, McKillop Insurance, if you had to guess?
Probably the Ironworks.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. It was actually founded in 1898.
Wow.
It's Leth Iron now, but yeah, they've been around a while. So now Daniel's going to ask you a trivia question about Lethbridge.
All right. My piece of trivia for you is, before it became the Galt Museum, the Galt was A, an observatory, B, a coal plant, C, a hospital, or D, a dance studio.
It was definitely a coal plant. Am I wrong?
Yeah, unfortunately it was C, a hospital.
All right, so now we've got some trivia about Daniel for me that you can ask me.
All right, here's Daniel's question, Michael.
Okay.
Daniel has how many paintings at his home that he made himself? 1, 3, 4, or 5?
That's more than I expected. I thought there might be a zero in there. That he's painted himself. It might have been a past guest showcase. So I'm going to go with 1.
You are incorrect. It is 3.
3. Wow.
He is a budding artist and you didn't even know it.
See that. Visual artist. I guess not. He never brings it up. So our next game is called This or That. With that we have these things in the hat, and it's 2 options: coffee or tea, cats or dogs. And
okay.
Yeah, and I'll do the first one, I guess, just to show you how it goes. Okay, this one is donkey or horse, if you had to choose.
Oh, definitely a horse. They're way more graceful.
Fair, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I would also choose a horse. Being from southern Alberta, it's very, cowboys and horses. And
for sure.
Yeah.
Although donkeys can be really hilarious.
Yeah.
Yep.
Have you seen some around?
Yes. One year, my family and I participated in a live nativity, and my son was the stable boy. And he had to stuff a carrot in the donkey's mouth because it was hee-hawing during some really quiet moments in the play. So it was funny. Okay. Eclectic or modern?
Ooh, yes. I haven't had that one in a while. I would say probably modern. If I'm thinking of my home or other things. Yeah, I think I like things to be fairly uniform and newish. So that's kind of where I would go with designing, I guess. How about you?
Yeah, probably more modern than eclectic. Yeah, I like a few little eclectic things, but yeah, new is good.
All right, I'll ask another one. All right. Flowers or chocolate?
Oh, yeah, chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah. They last about the same amount of time, or actually less, but chocolate is pretty satisfying.
Nice, yeah. What kind do you, is there a certain type of chocolate you like?
Oh, mint or peanut butter.
All right, I'll have you pick one.
Shoes or sandals?
I would say, for me, sandals. I like summertime, and it's very, freeing just to wear a nice pair of sandals, or we'll do lots of backcountry hiking and camping, and after you've been wearing your hiking boots all day, getting into a nice pair of sandals is always refreshing. Maybe jump in a lake or something. So
very true.
I would say sandals. And you?
Crocs. Something in between. Yeah.
Yeah, sandal
I
shoes.
did really like shoes this summer, but yeah, Crocs are for sure kind of what my go-to still
Yeah.
until the snow drops.
Right. Daniel, do you have any thoughts about shoes or sandals for yourself?
I would also be on the Crocs bandwagon. I love my Crocs. My mom wears Crocs. It's a thing. Yeah.
All right. Kind of a hybrid, yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I even got matching colored Crocs with my son this summer. It was great.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Great. Yeah. So our last little icebreaker game, let's straighten this out. This is the tumbling towers. And then so each one corresponds to a number, and that's just like an open-ended question. Like, what's your perfect day look like or something? So, yeah, go for it.
Question 18.
18, then yeah, I'll put it on top. 18. What's something that takes a lot of time but is definitely worth it? Anything you do in your daily life that...
Oh, yeah. I think having a daily exercise routine. It takes time, and I sometimes really don't want to do it, but then I feel really good afterwards that I did.
Makes
do
sense,
it.
yeah. What sort of exercises do you like to do?
I do like aerobic and stepping. And then this past year, I've incorporated weight training a couple times a week. And that's the one that does take a lot more time, but I've definitely seen the good results and feel like stronger and better because of it.
Makes sense, yeah. I guess I shouldn't assume that you like to do it. Maybe it's kind of a thing you don't like to do, but...
Well, it
yeah.
depends.
Some days.
And then, yeah, I mean, I think the fun thing that my husband and I do together is we have a tandem recumbent bike that we bike on. So that's a fun thing we like to do.
Yeah, I guess I would say the one that comes to mind first is like, for like a decade now, I've been like journaling every day.
Oh, that's a hard one.
Yeah, and I just got into the habit of it. So it's kind of like a reflection thing at the end of the day. And I found that, I think that takes time and a bit of dedication, but I find that's often worthwhile for just that habit and the mental health and stuff. And now I just like doing it. So
That's really good. You've gotten to that point.
right? Yeah, it became a habit. So, Daniel, was there anything that you can think of that takes time but is definitely worth it?
For me, like as of late, I just been making a habit of going for sunset walks. Just like it's a lovely way to like round out the day, and then like because I've been doing it over the course of probably a year now, it's like really interesting getting to the same space and watching the sunset, and so just like an appreciation of like how the environment, like the city in which I live, changes over the course of a year. So yeah, that's what I would say.
That sounds great.
I like that.
What a great answer. Nice. Well, I think that is all the time we have for this segment.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's been fun to play some games with you. So this has been On Location here in Lethbridge. I'm Michael.
I'm Daniel, and this has been...
Annae.
Great. All right, we'll be right back. Welcome back to On Location here in Lethbridge. I'm Michael.
I'm Daniel, and this is...
Annae.
Great. Yeah, so it was really fun to play some games with you and A and learn that we both like mint chocolate.
That's right.
Obviously, I'm really curious about your artistic practice, and I'm curious about your journey as an artist. That's what this segment is about, and learning about you. So I guess to start, I know you kind of said it the last segment, but just tell me briefly about your art. What sort of art do you make?
I do all sorts of art. I really like to experiment in my art and just see what I can put together. So as I said, I started out just painting acrylic and landscape, and then through my different art learning through mentorship, I started getting exposed to different things. So then I started to expand my subject, and then I started to expand the materials that I was using. And then the ideas started forming, and my own kind of style started emerging out of it, which was really great. So I do anything from very representational to very abstract work that is not representational at all to things in between that are semi-abstract or whimsical in nature. I did a series the other year of sheep doing human things, and they were very whimsical and textured and a lot of fun. And so, I like piecing things together, doing a lot of texture in my work, using a lot of color and creating some kind of narrative. Art for me is also a bit of a release. It leaves a lot of like pressure and stress in my life and just allows me to go beyond maybe borders that I feel kind of placed in having a disability where, I have kind of borders around me sometimes, and art allows me to just expand those borders and break them down.
When did you start painting?
Yeah, so that was really interesting. I did a little bit of art in high school. I thought I actually wanted to be a graphic artist, and my art was really not very good back then, and I didn't get into graphics art school, and so I became a technical writer instead. And then I got married, and we started having our family, and so all of that kind of took a break. And then in 2015, I had a friend invite me to a paint night, and it was the most liberating experience I'd had in a really long time. And at one point, I abandoned my brushes and just got my toes in the acrylic paint and was using my toes to move paint around. And so then we just started going to paint nights, and then I started inviting friends over to paint at my house. And then in 2018, I went to a conference in Houston for bilateral limb difference. And I met a couple other women down there that also paint with their feet. And they're members of the International Association of Mouth and Foot Painters. And they're like, hey, Annae, you should apply to become a member. And so on the eve of my 40th birthday, I said, what the heck? I have nothing to lose. So I applied. It was a year-long process. I had to, go for doctor's appointments to verify that, in fact, I can only paint with my feet and I don't have other appendages that I'm painting with. I had to do 6 new original works, which at that point, nothing felt original to me. I was still in the look at something and copy it. And then, did an interview with them. It was during COVID, so regularly they would have come up and done an in-person interview with me, but instead we had to do it over Zoom, and I had to paint for them as well. So there's a lot of pressure. And then my works went to a jury. And then it was December 18th of 2020. I found out I became a student member with their association. So I'm one of the Canadian foot painters. And then it's kind of skyrocketed from there. I'm like, okay, now I need to really learn how to paint and develop the skill and just go with this, this new thing that all of a sudden is really exciting me. So
what made you want to join that association as a student?
Yeah, I think it just being able to express myself artistically awakened something for me. For a time, I actually did some blog writing, and that was really liberating for me too, to be able to share the ideas and thoughts that were in my mind and how I've observed life in the world, and viewing it differently through someone with a disability is different than maybe an able-bodied person. Be able to now extend that into my artistic practice is really great. And I wouldn't say my art is anything trying to tell a social story at all, but it's the process and how I make it really mirrors how I approach my life. So every day is kind of, troubleshooting and maybe figuring out a different way how to do a different task. And so my artwork is kind of how I approach my artwork is kind of mirrors that. So I try to approach life with joy and optimism. There's a lot of troubleshooting sometimes in modifying and adapting, and I see that happening in my work all the time, which is really exciting. And especially when I do my mixed media work and collage, it's like putting a puzzle together, and I get such a thrill of it all coming together, which mirrors my life when I've had to figure out a difficult task. It's such a high feeling, I guess, when you figure out a problem, solve a problem. I remember when I was just little, the school playground that I grew up on in school, they didn't have steps up to the slide. It was high for me. It felt really high platform, and I would watch kids go up and down this all the 30 minutes of recess. And one day there was an old tire in the playground, and I looked at that tire and I'm like, I think I can use that tire to get up on the platform. And so I used this tire to get up on the platform, and then I was slowly making my way up on the different platforms, being careful that no one, knocked me off. And it took me all recess to get to the top of this platform, and then all for a 3-second ride down this tunnel slide. But I just felt so elated that I had solved the problem. And so I definitely see that's how I approach my art as well. So art is really exciting for me, and it just lets me kind of relieve all those, I guess, feelings and pressure that you feel in life into my art, but in like a joyous way as well. And especially with my sheep series, it allowed me to tell a story in kind of a comical and whimsical way, but to share what I've observed or how I wish I could have lived life. It touches all of those points as well.
You were a student of the organization, because I know you are involved in a lot of different organizations for limb differences. Were you already involved with those things before you started painting?
I was.
Yeah, when did that start?
Yeah, so other organizations that I'm involved with, so I'm a lifetime member of the War Amps of Canada. So that was started by war veterans after World War I, and then carried on. And they welcomed war veterans from World War II who had lost limbs. And then in 1975, they started the child amputee program because the war veterans noticed there were a lot of kids in Canada who were missing limbs and needed that peer support as well. So I grew up benefiting from going to child amputee seminars all through my growing years. And then what that evolved into is all these graduates of the child amputee program have become regional representatives for the organization. So most or all of those war veterans have passed on. And so now as a regional representative, I get to carry on their legacy and continue the work that they did. So I represent them at local things. It's so important as a person living without limbs, be able to meet other people that are like you and to share experiences and to problem solve together. And then also through them, I came in contact with an organization in the States called Enhancing Skills for Life. And they are also a charity that supports those missing both arms or more. And so I went to a conference for them in 2018 and then again 4 years later, and I'm going again in October now. And I've been on their board since after the first meeting. So the first time I went, this was kind of a cool moment. I knew there's this woman that flew a plane without arms. Her name's Jessica Cox. And I walk into this room and there's Jessica Cox. And it was like meeting my hero, and it was like meeting a movie star. And then I learned that she saw me and she had seen a video of me riding a bike. And that's what inspired her how to figure out how to ride a bike as well. So she was also starstruck. And so, yeah, it's been really neat to have that continued support into my adult years, because it's not, when you become an adult, you don't all of a sudden grow your arms back. They're still missing. So it's been neat to be able to work with both organizations and see how they support those living with limb difference in different ways.
So you were a student and you had to create those 6 original pieces. What was that like for you to have to do that? You said you were still pretty new into the process, right?
Oh yeah, it was really overwhelming because they wanted me to put something forward that was original, and I just really wanted to get accepted into the program, which was great. It's a lot different now. Like the expectations have grown on me, and I have higher expectations for myself now. So what I try to send to them now is much higher caliber of work than what I sent them originally. So yeah, how my contract with them works is I have a 3-year contract with them. So I'm coming up for my 2nd renewal next year. I provide them with 15 paintings over a 3-year period. So they have to be original paintings, so not copying from anyone else. Initially that felt really daunting, and now I'm like, that's all I want to do is create my own original work. And then they can choose to reproduce those paintings. So I've had a few reproductions with them already, and then in return I get a monthly scholarship that helps support my artistic growth and supplies and all of that. So yeah, if you see like the cards or the calendars or whatever, they're all done by mouth or foot painters across the world, and it enables them to be able to work and also pursue that artistic development.
The other organizations that you're involved with, is there opportunities to connect with other artists in that group? Like, even online or at conferences?
Yeah, I connect with different people through the limb difference communities. I'm actually going to Ottawa next weekend to be with the other regional representatives. We meet together once a year and share ideas, and we're going to be able to share kind of what our impact has been this year and the different events that we've been involved in. With the Enhancing Skills for Life, I will help with some of the groups as well. And it's very much like a amputees helping amputees philosophy, and that's the War Amps philosophy, and be able to share, this has worked for me and might work for you. And I mean, going back to art, that's kind of how art is like for me as well, and having other peers to bounce ideas off of it and share, say, hey, this is a really cool technique, why don't you try it? And I just really have a lot of joy in helping others develop an artistic expression.
So you made those 6 pieces. Like, what would have come next in your artistic journey?
With my contract with the Mouth and Foot Painters Association, so I provide them with 5 paintings every year. So I've been doing that for the last 6 years. And then my responsibility in that is to really devote myself to developing my artistic skills and development. I use some of the scholarship to take workshops and online mentorship. So the last 4.5 years, I've been taking online mentorship through a company called Mastrius. They are founded through Calgary, and they connect us with their small groups on Zoom once a month, and you meet with your mentor, who could be from all across the world, and they help meet you where you're at. So you would tell your mentor what you want to learn, and then the mentor would come back and say, okay, this is what we're going to learn this session. They give you feedback on homework. You have what's called a navigator in the session, who's also an artist, who's being mentored, but they help facilitate the session, and they meet with you and the other group members one other time during the month. So you have that peer-to-peer relationship as well. I've started with one mentor. My first mentor was David Langevin, and then I'm like, maybe I'll add one more, and I added Bobby Dunlop and then Veronica Funk, and I stayed with them for a time, and then all of a sudden I went from 3 mentors to 5 mentors pretty consistently.
Was there anything kind of that comes to mind, maybe just one of your mentors, like something that's significant that they brought to you that made you improve your art or change your art?
David Langevin and Bobby Dunlop really taught me a lot of just about like the tools and the materials and the quality of materials that I should be using to create my art, and creating that depth in my work, which I'm still working on. And then I had this mentor, Sandra Duran-Wilson, and she's a mixed media artist, and she introduced me to all these fun mixed media techniques, and I've had so much fun experimenting and incorporating it into my own practice. And last year, I actually had the opportunity to go and do an in-person workshop with Sandra, and that was so neat to meet my mentor in person. And then I've had other mentors like Samantha Williams-Chapelski, who's an Alberta artist here, and Cameron Schmitz, who lives in the States. They've just helped me really kind of understand why I'm painting what I'm painting, and to encourage me in the style that I'm pursuing, and helping me with that business side of art making as well. Because unfortunately, there's that side of the art industry as well. Like the fun part is the art making, and then the hard part is kind of the business side of it.
Tell me more about the business side of making your art.
Oh, yeah. So one of my groups right now, with Cameron, we're working on updating our website. So I've spent a significant amount of time this month updating my website and making sure that things are organized in a better way. And so it's just very inviting for people to come in, and kind of my next step will be working on, those artist statements, and then drawing people to my website. And the one I've been avoiding for a while is newsletter writing. And I don't know why, but I've put a big block in that. But that's a great way for me to connect with my followers and build a relationship with them, is to give them an insight into my studio practice and what I've been up to. To be at places, that's something I've learned through Mastrius as well. And I would never have had the confidence before to, when I had my first solo show in Fort Macleod, I would never have had the confidence before to even like go to one of those events and ask if I could have one myself.
And what was that like going and like approaching people to like ask to have your art in their gallery or put on a show?
Oh yeah, it's very scary and intimidating. I had a friend that was doing a show there, and I went and talked to one of the organizers and just said, I just wanted to see what one of these were like. I'm an artist too. And that took a while to actually like call myself an artist. I used to have the tag Barefoot Art in YQL, and I decided I shouldn't be hiding behind a fun name anymore, that I needed to actually just come out as an artist. And so I changed my tag to Annae Jones Artist, because I need to embrace that title. And yeah, anyway, so when I talked to Fort Macleod Allied Arts, I was so timid and scared to ask her, and kind of like, and she was so nice. I just said, I was thinking about maybe doing a show sometime. She's like, well, we can have you in here, which was great. It was, she created a really safe space for me to be able to practice that.
So that first solo show of yours, what was that like to open your first solo show in Fort Macleod?
It was amazing. I mean, Tilly that I worked with, she was so supportive and helpful, and I was so grateful to her. It was definitely emotional. I tried to, I had a lot of people through Mastrius that wanted to be there and couldn't be there because they live farther away. I just had so many great people show up, family and friends, people I didn't even know were going to show up to the show. I took a lot of pressure off myself because sometimes as artists, you can get pigeonholed and told, well, that's your style then, and that's what you have to paint all the time. And I really fight that a lot, because sometimes I really want to paint something representational. And you'll see in my studio today, I'm working on something very representational, and I have to be in the right mind frame to do that. But after I'm done this, I will probably want to do some abstract or some mixed media, because I actually have to like release my mind, because some types of painting are a lot more stressful for me and just mentally wearing down. My show in Fort Macleod was a mixture of all those things, but it was neat how like textures and colors related to each other, and I found threads in them, even though the abstracts were over here, and then I had, my whimsical sheep, and then I had some very abstract type of work and mixed media, and then I had some very representational oil paintings, but it was neat how they all spoke. That's an A.
Can you tell me a little bit more about, like, after the solo show, maybe some of the another show you might have been involved with?
Sure. Yeah, I was in the second year I've done it. It's the Pied Art Squared show out in Toronto. So that show's unique in that we all paint on round canvases. They're called tondos. The one year I had everything sell out. The next year I didn't have anything sell, but it was okay. Like, I realized it's okay to have some inventory, because I've been able to push those things to other places as well. And it's about, experimenting and pushing myself as an artist. And, if I apply again to that show, then I'll, rethink, okay, what do I need to maybe do differently or approach differently? And so that's been neat. I had some things up at the Penny earlier this year as well, and sold some things through them as well. So I think initially I thought of all these like shows beyond Lethbridge, and this year has been more focusing on like being in Lethbridge and showing my art in person.
I think we are getting close with our time on the interview portion. Our last question is, how has your artistic practice, how has that like influenced your everyday life?
Maybe in some ways I've become a little more of a hermit. I want to be in my studio a lot. So that's, good and bad, I guess. I think it's really helped my confidence. I have a greater desire to help others explore and discover their artistic expression, because people will say, oh, I'm not artistic and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I didn't think I was. I didn't know I had it in me, because people look and like, oh, that's so inspiring. And I'm like, yeah, but I wasn't painting 10 years ago. So, I think there's a lot more in us than we realize. And then I think it's just helped me realize like there's no arriving with anything that we do. in our lives that, you know, there's growing and learning. There's moments of, like that makes sense and that works. And then we just continue on to a new chapter. And I love how my art can kind of mirror my life and back and forth, and really working hard on expressing my feelings through my art.
Thank you so much for this chat. I really enjoyed it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so this has been On Location here in Lethbridge. I'm Michael.
I'm Daniel, and this has been
Annae.
All right, we'll be right back.
Hello, and welcome to On Location in Lethbridge. I'm Daniel.
I'm Michael, and this is...
Annae.
I'm so excited to do our showcase segment with you. You mentioned that like sometimes there is a difference between seeing your pieces in person and virtually, but we do have images of one piece of yours, which was called Sacred Journey. What can you tell me about that piece and what was going on?
Yeah, so that was a really interesting piece because it became a series. I just felt like playing one day in the studio, so I slathered on a whole bunch of different acrylic textures on a panel, on 3 panels actually. And then I chose a different color palette than I usually do. I just changed up the 3 colors that I was using. I just started painting intuitively, making marks and all these things, and then all of a sudden a figure emerged. And quite often when I'm doing abstract work, people say they see figures in my work, and I'm not necessarily intending to make a figure, but this figure emerged. And as my series kind of grew and developed, I went back and kind of altered these original 3 pieces that I did to kind of farther define this character of a woman going on a journey. So the intent of that piece is really that we're here for a purpose, and it's not just about, you know, self-gratifying ourselves and just doing things for ourselves, but that we have a reason for being here.
You also mentioned that that was a part of a series,
Yes.
and in your conversations with Michael, there was conversations of like starting pieces individually, and then like as you've kind of had more opportunities now you have to start thinking more broadly or maybe longer term. Was there any of that involved in that specific piece or series?
It started out as a series of 9 paintings, and I actually want to expand the series and hopefully get it up in somewhere locally here in Lethbridge. The second kind of segment in the series is all where kind of life falls apart. There's despair, there's, you know, feelings of grief and aloneness and, you know, just confusion and, you know, forgetting of why you're here. And so the characters in that series are like, they're in danger. There's snakes, there's daggers. There's a lot more tension in the piece. And then the last 3 are all about finding that calm again, and the motive of rescue and being saved and like a savior. And so these women are then arriving at this beautiful white tree, arriving to where they were intending to go. And, you know, that journey along that, the difficult part was all the learning and growing that they needed to do. And, you know, we kind of start out life maybe a little naive and think, oh, this is my focus. And then you go through really hard things and your focus changes. And then you come maybe to the end and see how all those hard, muddy things in the middle made you, and maybe made a better version of yourself.
Am I right in connecting the next piece, Arriving, is also part of that series?
It is.
Is that a different part?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
What can you tell me about that piece?
I think Arriving is just like those aha moments I was talking about, of just those feelings of peace and calm. Like you maybe have gone through something really difficult and then you're on the other side and see like the perspective. It's kind of like doing a really hard hike and you think like, I'm never going to get to the top of this. And then you push through it and then you see this beautiful display, but that's really not the end of your journey. Like that was just a pivot point, and now you're on to the next thing. We maybe arrive to maybe a life lesson, maybe it's a faith journey or whatever, but then the journey doesn't stop there. There's growing here, there's growing beyond.
Another piece that you shared with us that really caught my imagination was Within the Storm. What can you tell me about that piece?
Oh, okay. So in one of my mentorship groups, she had us quarter a page, and we were talking about, light dominant, dark dominant in the painting. She kind of showed us, Susan Wolgar, she showed us her kind of method of doing these playful marks in the background, and then she brings it together, and then also limiting your palette. So this is 2 complementary colors. I had done these little studies, and I actually really liked the color relationships. And then the mark making, like, to me, I love playing. I like taking all these scratchy tools out and scraping back and putting things on to make texture, like implied textures. And so I was inspired by these little pieces. I'm like, I kind of like those. And for a long time, I've had these empty 24 by 24 canvases that I wanted to replace. And then I started adding in all the color and the playing. So Within a Storm kind of feels like that's how my mind works. I was just like, I was in a storm of flurry, grabbing this tool and that tool and making marks. And so that piece really represents kind of my playful side and like the joy that I find in just being free and having no limitations.
Let's move on to our next piece here. What can you tell me about this piece?
Sure. Yeah. So this is one of my homework pieces for one of my groups, and I've really struggled with painting representationally this year. I've painted this piece a couple times now. The challenge was to make it bigger. So the original was like 6 by 8. Okay. So this is 16 by 20. So this is, in progress right now. I'm looking forward to getting some feedback on it, because having another artist's eye on it really helps you, like, oh, I didn't think about that. And, this is not sitting right, or I need to push that back farther. And I love getting that feedback and other people's perspective on it. Sure.
So what can you tell me about these pieces?
These are some of my funnest things to do. For my first solo show, I was getting really exhausted by making my sheep, and I needed a bit of a mental break. And so I started doing these mixed media collage flowers. And it starts with like taking some Bristol board, and I apply some texture to it, and then I paint it. So this has a glass bead gel on it. And then I cut them out into pieces, and then I piece it together like a puzzle. The background on this is really textured. It actually came from a mistake that I had made. I had applied something that had parchment on the back. This piece and some others are going to be at the Christmas at Casa market in November.
Yeah, I love seeing the variety, and it sounds like it speaks to your playful nature and just wanting to play with lots of different things and see what you can do. So yeah, I think on that note, I think that is the time that we have.
Sounds good.
So thank you so much for your time and insight.
Thank you too.
Yeah, this has been On Location in Lethbridge. I'm Daniel.
I'm Michael, and this is
Annae.
Thank you so much for watching.
If you or someone you know has a story to tell, scan this QR code and get in touch with the StoryHive On Location team.